What's up everybody, Thomas Brandon here. Welcome to another School of Sim Racing videos. Today we're going to be looking at the adjustments, making adjustments on the 360 winged sprint car. Now keep in mind these adjustments apply to the 410s as well in terms of what you're doing and stuff like that. The 410s have more power, obviously. They're much faster. They have more power. And so, you might have to make a greater adjustment, right? If you're going to, let's say, move the right rear tire in, you might have to do it, instead of doing it a 1/4 inch, you might have to do it a 1/2 inch on the 410s because they have more power and it can break the wheels loose more and that type of stuff. But overall, what you're going to be looking to do is basically the same. Now, I'm going to do 410 specific videos later, but right now I'm going to focus on the 360. So what do we got? Well, first of all, I saved the video, or I saved the setup from the first video for the base. And if you haven't seen that video, make sure you check that out because I show you how to establish the base setup and how I do it and things like that. And it'll help you out a ton with just getting a good base setup so you don't have to, use iRacing setup and all that other stuff, okay? And it'll help this video make a lot more sense. So I've got that say we're going to be using the exact same thing. Now, before we dive into that, there's a couple of things that I want to cover with you. First of all, I made mention of this before, but when you go to the options to the driver's view, this right here, roll chassis and pitch chassis, when you get iRacing, most of the time what happens is it comes at 100. Okay? It's locked in at 100 and 100. Now, what this does, I'm going to show you what this does. Okay? Pay attention to the car, right? Pay attention to the body, the wing, okay? See how it doesn't really move? Like you can see it kind of move a little bit when I hit the gas, but not much. Like I have to be stepping on it. For the most part, it just locks the car, right? It locks the view. We don't want that, okay? We want this thing we want to see it moving. We want it to be like real life. That's what we want. And the reason for that is this lets us see what the car's doing. Now you can see we've got much more movement in the car, right? I mean, this thing, you can see it side to side, forward, back. I mean, we can really see what's going on here. And that's what we want, because that's going to let us know what the car's doing and what we would need to change or adjust. That actually makes a huge difference. Not only that, but when you're driving, what will happen is your eyes will get used to taking in this information. You see, we're not physically in the race car, right? So when I would race, I knew the car was hitting the slick because I could feel it, right? I could feel the tires. I could feel it in my butt. I could feel it in the seat. I could feel the tires spinning. I could feel, the traction not being there, that type of stuff. In this, we don't feel that, right? Everything is through the steering wheel and with our eyes. And so the more information that you can process in terms of the realism, the better. And so that is something that you should, want to make sure to do. Keep in mind at the beginning, you're going to be like, man, this is crazy. This looks weird, but you'll get used to it very soon. And when you do, you'll notice a huge difference in your driving, okay? And it really matters, especially when the track gets slick. Now, let's move on. So, first things first. I've noticed something that a lot of drivers don't do. A lot of racers don't do. And there's times where this just happened last week, where we had a race and it was really early in the morning where I live. It was like 5:30 in the morning, and I get up really early for my work and stuff like that. And one of the things I like to do is in the morning, I'm kind of having some me time. When I take a break, I like to do a race on iRacing. And there is a 360 wing sprint car race at 5:30 a.m. my time. That's an NPR race that I usually like to do. It's usually the same 10 or 12 same people with, 5 or 10 other people kind of rotate through. And we were racing here at Charlotte, And we started out with a clean track. And by the main event, that track was probably an 80%. I mean, it was so slick for 20 drivers. It was unreal. And a lot of drivers would be like, I cannot believe this track is this slick, and how did it get so bad, and blah, blah, just on and on and on and on. Well, all they had to do was go here and check info and look at the weather, right, and the temperature, because that's going to tell you a ton. So always look at this, okay? The temperature, the track temperature, the humidity, that's what RH is, and then this last little bit right here, 29 inches of HG rising. That doesn't matter. All that matters is whether this says rising or falling. Rising means better, good weather is coming. Falling means bad weather is coming, which will typically mean cloud cover. All right? So this will let you know how the track's going to be. If it's, 85 degrees outside and the track is 90 degrees, okay, and you're racing in the afternoon, just know the track's going to slick off fast. Like, it's going to be a really dry, slick track. So you want to make sure that you pay attention to that to help you stay ahead of the track. What happens a lot of times is as drivers, they don't stay ahead of the track. They just kind of go through the motions. They might do, one or two little adjustments, and then they get to the main, and now they've got a full fuel load. Their car's not set up good, and they're just slamming the wing back trying to get the thing to hook up. And we don't want to do that. We want to be better prepared. And that's what I'm going to show you in this video. So, what are the setups that I do? Well, actually, you know what? Let's do this. We've got the base setup that we covered in the last video, okay? No changes, no nothing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go out and I'm going to turn just a couple of laps on a 30% track. Because another thing that kind of rule of thumb is usually it's going to be about 10% per session. Now I'm talking about MPR official races. If you're doing a user created race or a league race or something like that, it might be more or less depending on the cars, how many cars are in there and how many laps or the heats and stuff like that. But official MPR races, you can expect usually about 10 to 15% in track usage every session. So if you start off with a clean track, by the end of practice, it's going to be at 10%. If it's 10% when you qualify, then by the first heat race, it's going to be 20%. Heat race 1 is 20%. Heat race 2 will be 30%, right? Then the consolation will be 40%, and the main event will start out at 50%. See how that works? That's usually what you can expect. So this is a 30% track state, which is what it would be for, around heat race 1, heat race 2, somewhere right around there. And so we've got the exact same setup, haven't changed anything. Let's go out and let's turn a few laps. Now, one thing that kind of drives me crazy about these auto-generated track states in iRacing and the tests when you do testing is that the track doesn't wear like it would in a real race. So you can see right here, the top's already worn out. I mean, we've got some through the middle here, but the bottom and everything is still good. And so that's not really what it would be like, but we have to work with what we got, and so that's what we're going to do. So let's hit the gas here and let's see what we got going on. Now keep in mind, I'm still holding the throttle wide open here. It's a little loose coming out of the corner. That's why I got that little shimmy and shake going down the straightaway there. Oops, hit the slick patch, but still doing all right. Oh, almost hit the tire. All right, so we're a little loose coming out, which is, that's going to be expected. The track's going to start slicking off a little bit. You hit those slick patches, it's going to slick off. Now, one thing is that the top doesn't usually start coming in until a little bit later on this track, but we'll run a couple laps here on the top. The main thing that we want to know is the car, does the car work up there? Is the car going to work on the high line? Is it going to work on the bottom? A lot of times drivers, what will happen is they got a car that they can run around the top, but then when they go to run the bottom, they can't pass anybody. Their car's not good enough to pass anybody. And so we want to make sure that we can at least go where we want to go, right? Will the car work on the top? Will it work on the bottom? You know, if it's faster on the top, okay, fine, but can we at least go low and pass somebody, right? That type of thing. Now, you'll see that for a 30% track state, right, in a car that we turned, you know, 13.3, 13.4 at the 10%, to do, you know, 13.8, low 14s, high 13s, it's pretty good, right? Pretty good, considering that we didn't make any changes. We just left the car. So now let's go in and let's make some changes. So how do I stay ahead of the track? Well, the first thing that I do is I pretty much almost always, every session, lower my stagger a half an inch. By the main event at this track, I'm going to have probably 11.5 inches of stagger. That's what I'm going to be running in the main. So in qualifying, if I'm running 13, then that means in the heat race, I'm going to be at 12.5. If I run the consi, I would be at 12. Now, normally, I'm not in the consi, and so what I do is I go from 12.5 to 11.5 for the main. All right, that's one thing that I do. Now, we're going to actually cover a 50% track state in the next race. I'm going to show you how I set my car up for the feature, because I do make a couple of different changes, but we'll worry about that in the next video. So first thing I do is I always drop the stagger a half inch. Next, I'm going to go here, okay, and I am going to move the right rear wheel in, and I'm going to move the left rear wheel out. Now I'm going to go a 1/4 inch out on the left rear and a half inch in on the right rear. Now this really is preference. Keep in mind, okay, if you want to be better, better safe than sorry, you could go 17.25, right? If you're like, 17.5 might be too tight, that's fine. We would rather have the car a little too loose than too tight, because remember, I've got the wing all the way forward. I can't loosen my car up anymore, right? But I can tighten it up by moving it back. So if we go 17.25, that's fine too. It's going to really depend on you and how the track is wearing. But I usually will move it in between 1/4 and a half an inch. This is all based on the fact that my car, that I have a good base setup that felt good in practice and qualifying. If I went out to qualify and I'm like, man, the setup sucks on this right now, then I wouldn't be doing just minute changes like this. I'd be doing wholesale changes. We're talking about staying ahead of the racetrack. You've got a good base setup and you're trying to stay ahead of the track. That's what we're doing, okay? So move the right rear in 1/4 inch, move the left rear out 1/4 inch. Now when I do that, that actually changes the ride height. You can see, though, it was next to nothing. Okay, so I'm not going to actually mess with that at all. Another thing that I'll do is I'll actually increase the bump on the left front. Not always, but sometimes I'll increase the bump on the left front and decrease the rebound. As the track slicks off, I want this to, I want a stiffer front end, so I'm getting more weight transfer to the rear end, right? That's all. It's all about forward bite when the track slicks off. I'm going to leave the fuel at 5 gallons. That is enough to run a heat race, 8 laps. If you're concerned about it, you can say, hey, I'm going to put 6 gallons in. Fine, okay? Just remember that when you add fuel, that changes your ride heights. You've got to accommodate for that, okay? So we'll fix that right now. Boom. Our corner weight is still, we've got it even right now, which is good. That's where I want it at this track. And so now we're good to go. Setup is in. We're all ready. So let's go turn some laps and see how this bad boy works. Cut that corner too low going in. On Charlotte, you really want to make sure that when you're coming off, you almost want to diamond the corner when it starts to slick off like this. So that way you can come off under the slick. Because if you slide up too much, or you catch the slick like I just did there, That was a bad move. Then you end up messing up like I just did. And one bad corner leads to another. And one bad lap leads to another. That's what can happen. It's so important that you get into your rhythm. Whoa. This is actually not set up. This is me just hitting the slick. What am I doing? Hitting the... There's one spot that's slick, and I'm hitting it every single time. Let's just go to the top. See how she runs up here. We know that we can go to the bottom if we need to, right? Prefer not to because the driver, me, is not doing a very good job of staying out of the slick. That's actually a disclaimer that I should let you know. I am a much better setup man than I am driver. Much better setup man than driver. Now another thing that I could have done, probably should have done, and I didn't, is, well... So we can get it right up here on the cushion, and it stays there, which is awesome. I mean, that's basically what we want, right? Get it up on the cushion, not get sucked into the wall. Now I did backpedal a little bit on the throttle that time, which is something that you'll have to do as the track starts to slick off. Right, you can see right there, just backpedaling a little bit. Getting the tires hooked up, accelerating out of the corner. I shaved a couple tenths of a second off our fastest time. Okay, so let's take a look at the lap times here. Those first few laps were horrible, man. It's embarrassing that I was hitting the slick like that. I can't believe that. So our last little group here, you can see we had set a new fast time, 13.5. Got the lap times a lot better after I stopped screwing up. But you can see that if we look from 16 to 21, the last few laps where I was running consistent and not hitting the slick every time, much better than these laps up here. Much better and much more consistent. And that's what we're looking for, is that consistency. You want a car, like I said, that feels good, can handle, and you can be consistent with. You've got a car that's hooked up, and it might lay down a fast lap or two, but if you can't do that over and over again, then your setup's junk. It's not good. It's just not. Dale Earnhardt Jr. told a story on his podcast. He was telling a story about a long time ago, right, years ago. He had only been in NASCAR for a few years, and this was back when Dale Earnhardt Sr. was still alive. And they were at, Michigan. And it was happy hour. And any of you guys who watched Dale Earnhardt Sr., you know that he wasn't really the best qualifier. He had won poles and set fast times and stuff like that. But overall, his big concern is the car being comfortable. He knew that it was a 500-mile race, and he wanted that thing to be comfortable and handle the entire race. And so that's what he focused on. Dale Jr., he wanted his car to be fast. And so he would have them set it up to where that car was fast. So yeah, he'd go out and qualify great, but in a few laps, it wouldn't be that good anymore. And so they had their cars, they're out there for happy hour, and Dale Sr. goes to Jr. and says, hey, drive my car for a few laps in happy hour, let me drive yours. Junior's like, all right, so they go out, they run, and Dale Jr.'s talking about Senior's car, how it rolls over on the right side, and it's just smooth, but he's like, man, it feels slow. And Senior drives Junior's car, and after they get done with their little session, Junior goes, so what'd you think of the car? And Dale Sr. told him, I'll see you in 15 laps. And he's like, what? And Senior said, that car ain't going to make it. He said, that setup ain't going to last. He said, in 15, after they dropped the green flag, in 15 laps, you'll see me passing you. Because, Junior was 10 spots ahead of him. And sure enough, in that race, 15 laps later, 20, maybe 20 laps, but it was right around what he said, Dale Sr.'s passing him, and Junior's car, the handle's already gone away. Now, this isn't NASCAR. We're not running 500-mile races. But a 30-lap feature or even an 8-lap feature, if you can't run consistent laps because you've got some setup on your car that might be fast, but man, you're on the razor's edge the entire time, then you don't have something good. The most important thing that you can be right now is smooth and consistent. If you do that, you'll win more races and increase your iRating faster and better than most drivers will. I promise you. If you go out and you set consistent lap times every single time, that consistency will pay off in the long run. It just will. So that's what you want to be focusing on. All right, and I hope this video helps you with that. Now, really quick, what if you've got a setup that you put on there, right? Maybe you had the base setup and you're like, man, Tommy, this thing's just not working, right? What could you do? Well, a couple of things. First of all, you've got to diagnose the problem. So I'm going to show you a couple of wholesale changes that you can make if the car is really not feeling good for where you're at, all right? Let's say the car is like super, super loose going into the corner, okay? And you don't want to move the right rear wheel all the way in. Or you don't want to, move the wing all the way back, right? Well, one thing that you can do is you can adjust the cross weight of the car. Now, what's cross weight? Cross weight is you got it right up here, is the weight between the right front, left rear, or left front, right rear. And the best way to look at cross weight is this. The more cross weight that you have, the more cross weight equals a loose car going in and a tight car coming out. So if you look at the turn and you think about it, you have the entry, the apex or the middle, the center point, and then the exit. Cross weight, you're going to be loose. It loosens you up on the entry, and then from the center out, it's going to tighten you up. So if you think about the car being, freed up going in, and then when you're hitting that gas or when you got the car set, it's wanting to straighten out and basically shoot up to the wall. Not slide up to the wall, but point to the wall, okay? That's what more cross weight equals. So less cross weight means the opposite. It means you're going to tighten yourself up entering and loosen yourself up coming off. Now, the way that you adjust the cross weight is actually really, really simple. You can raise the right front raise the right front and left rear. And when I say raise, I'm talking about the right height. Now, we've got the right front all the way up, but if I raise the left rear, right, we go one turn, you'll see now we have more cross weight. The cross weight has gone up. All right. That left rear corner weight, that left rear bite, that's what that is. The more left rear bite you have, the freer that car is going to be driving in and the tighter it's going to be driving out. Understand, your right rear gets you into the corner, your left rear gets you out of the corner. All right. That's the way that it works. So that's something that you can do. Increasing that cross weight. Now, we just increased the cross weight, so what we're going to do is let's go out. I'm going to show you how to turn. I'm going to turn a couple of laps so we can see how this feels. And keep in mind, increasing the cross weight loosens you up getting into the corner. You need to account for that. And then it's going to tighten you up coming off, which means it's going to want to shoot you straight to the wall. From the center out. You get that drive up off. And this is really going to be one of those things that's going to fit the driving style, because there's really only two types of driving styles. So you can either drive in or drive through. So what's the difference? Well, drive in means you drive it into the corner like that, maybe backpedal a little bit to get the car set, and then you drive out. Drive through means you might backpedal going in and then you're driving through the rest of the corner, right? That's really the difference. Now, if you're wide open on the top, it's basically, you know, you're just holding it wide open. But how you hit your line, how you set your car and win will have an effect on that as well, right? Because not everybody drives the top the same. Some guys go in there and they jerk the wheel to the left, get it set, and then they just hold it straight all the way through. Other people might be, you know, turning the wheel a little bit, you know, keeping the car up there, shimmying it through the corner, right? There is no right or wrong. It's not that one's better than the other. They're just different. And because of that, because of the different styles, right, the setup is going to affect how those styles feel. Okay? So that is a way that you can make some big changes. You don't want to go out and start messing with shocks and bars and all that types of stuff like that, because if you start screwing with all that, now you've got some really, really big changes that you've made. And what happens is drivers will usually, you can see we're pretty good. We're better than we were before the first run, but not as good as that second run, right? But what will happen is drivers will come in, they're like, man, the car's not working, and then they go in here and they're trying to make these wholesale changes, and they just screw themselves up. Okay? Now, the other one that you can do is you can add some split to the car. Now, split is basically with the bars. So you can see right here, we've got it even in the back. I've got a 1-inch bar and a 1-inch bar. Split would put a 1.25 inch bar in the right rear. Now, keep in mind, when you do that, you got to adjust the ride height. You got to fix that. So because the bar is like a spring. Okay, that's how it is. It doesn't, you can't stiffen or soften a bar by putting turns in or taking turns out. That's not how it works. So you're going to have a stiffer bar. That stiffer bar is going to put more weight on that corner because it's pressing down, right? It's going to hook the car up more, but it's going to change the ride height. That matters. So you've got to compensate for that. You got to reset the ride height. So the way to do that is you put a stiffer bar in, right? And then you get the ride height back to where it needs to be, which is right there. Okay? That's another one that you can do. Run a couple laps and I'll show you the difference. And this is going to be stuff that you're not going to really see the difference in this video. This is stuff that you're going to feel when you drive. To be honest, bar split is something that I do, but I don't do it nearly as often in these winged cars as I do in like the midget or the non-wing car. A lot of times in those cars I run reverse split. Okay. So I mean, bar split's one of those things that it adds the tilt to the car, and it'll definitely help. But oops, I missed the corner there, missed the groove. But like I said, it's just one of those things that you've got to feel yourself, because it's going to depend on your driving style, how the car feels, all that type of stuff. And you can see that the cars are pretty, you know, these laps with this setup that I'm running, we're pretty consistent here, right? We're within the ballpark. You can see we're actually running a lot slower lap times with this. And that's one thing that I've noticed about iRacing, is that you might have a setup that you do and you're like, man, the car feels good. And then you go out there and you're like, I'm a half a second off of what I was doing before. Wow, I thought the car felt better. And it doesn't, right? It's actually a lot slower. So that's something to keep in mind. Once you get consistent and you're smooth, keep in mind that your setup is going to really have a dramatic effect on your lap times, because the ability to hook those cars up matters. All right, so that's what I do. Those are the setup changes that I make to stay ahead of the track, right, going into the heat race. Now, for the main event, for the feature, we've got a couple of other things that we need to do, and that's what I'm going to be covering in the next video. So stay tuned, right? Because you definitely want to see how to do that for the 50% track, for the main event track, because that's where the drivers have the most issues. So you don't want to miss out on that, okay? So that's going to do it all for this video. As always, thank you very much for joining me. If you like this, please do me a favor, hit that like button and also subscribe. Make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell so you know when the next video comes out, and then leave a comment down below for me. Okay, if you try these setups, you try these adjustments, and they help you out, let me know. I want to help, and I want to hear that it's making an improvement in your racing. That's why I'm doing this. I genuinely just love doing this. I really do. And so leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know how things are going. If you've tried it, if it helps, or if you got something that you're like, hey, Tommy, I need some help. I need some help figuring out the non-wing 360s. Let me know, and I'll do a video on that and show you how to do that. So comment down below, subscribe, and hit that like button. Do all of that stuff for me, and I'll see you in the next video. And until then, as always, I want to wish you good luck, good racing, and take care.